Good morning and welcome to Vulnerable Moments with Miss E. Today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, and today's topic is recovery. Ever since 2004, that's August of 2004, I have been in emotional, physical, and mental recovery. And that's the reason for me bringing today's topic to you. During the month of May, my body itself goes through this severe fatigue. And it's not because of a particular illness. It's because of the fact that for some reason, that bond between a mother and child still exists and has yet to be broken. And I know you're wondering, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, my mother's birthday is in the month of May. And the same thing occurs with my body in the month of August, which is the same month that she actually passed away from cancer. And I'm coming to you because in the month of May, two things is happening that's relevant to my mother. We just celebrated Mother's Day. And her birthday will be celebrated on May 27th. And the reality is, I love that woman. That is my baby. And I'm her baby. And I miss her like crazy. And I just, this past Sunday, it was Mother's Day. Many people celebrated. And part of me every year wants to be the bitter individual that I can be and just, kind of bash Mother's Day because I don't have my mother. But for years, I've encouraged other people to celebrate their mothers. And even this year, the enemy, the devil, my emotions, my mental state, all wanted me to say, forget Mother's Day. But then I realized I have mothers that are still around me. There are mothers that are still investing in me emotionally, mentally, through encouraging me. And there are also mothers who have come behind mine. My siblings are now mothers. My baby sister is a mother. My older sister is a mother. One of my sisters is actually expecting to be a mother. And I'm excited for Story to enter this world. Not to mention, my grandmother played an amazingly huge role in raising me. So how could I not celebrate Mother's Day when there were so many mothers who surrounded me as the village who raised this child into a woman? And so for those of you who are hurting on Mother's Day, I say to you, seek the pleasurable moments. Seek out the fun times. Every year, the load doesn't get lighter. You don't forget your mother. Every day that passes may not get easier for you, but you'll be able to adapt. We know from reading my book that there are 7 stages. 7 stages in grief. And one of those stages is denial. That's like the very, very first stage. And we have to go through a process. We have to stay committed to it. And I've realized that every year I grow mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, socially. Every year I've recognized who I am. So when we first encounter some of these hardships in the 7 stages of grief, number 1 being shock and disbelief, we don't want to deal with it. It's not something that we definitely want to accept. Sometimes there's guilt. And for a few years, I felt guilty for wanting to celebrate Mother's Day. I felt guilty for wanting to celebrate her birthday, but I had to remember my mother was a woman of celebration. If nobody could celebrate you, she good. Every Sunday was like Thanksgiving at her house because she cooked and she was heavy-handed. And when I say heavy-handed, those plates were filled to capacity. Those meals were super duper edible and delightful. The next stage is anger and bargaining. Yeah, we get angry sometimes. And every year I have to bargain with that emotional self, with the mental impact, with the physical impact of getting out of bed and celebrating somebody else who's not my birth mother. But I cannot forget the impact that these women have had on my life. Some of us go through a state of depression or loneliness and reflection in stage 4 of the grieving process. It is real. It is real. You know, many of us Christians don't want to actually accept that they go through depression. I've gone through what they call SAD, seasonal affect disorder. I was truly actually sad at the loss. I mean, it's natural. Sometimes society doesn't allow us to grieve properly. But understanding that I'm a licensed social worker, I understand that even the stigmas associated with the grieving process is necessary. It's necessary. Having a counselor, a psychiatrist, a social worker, someone to hear you out and be there, who is not your family member, who is neutral to a situation, is necessary. Then there's the reconstruction and working through this hard time, this grief period. When you finally figure out that it's time to rebuild, that it's time to face life without that woman that raised you, that birthed you. And you remember, for me, I remembered that my mom referred to me as her winner. Remember that thing that your mom said to you that encouraged you. I know it's 2 days past Mother's Day, but I had to help somebody through, because even with funerals, it's not always the day of the funeral or the day of the passing. It's usually after everybody disperses, after everybody leaves, when we all grieve. The final stage is the acceptance stage of grieving. You finally accepted that you can never be held. You can never hear that person's voice unless you have a voice recording. And that's what got me through this Mother's Day. You got to remember, I lost my mother and her sister. Because when my mother passed, my Aunt Tessa stepped up for me. Not only did I lose my mother and her sister, but I lost my great-grandmother, who had a huge role, who played a huge role in my life. One of the most realest women I've ever known. I lost those women, but I had to remember, I still have my grandmother. I still have my mother's mother here, and she still deserves to be celebrated. She still deserves to receive her flowers while she's here. For many mothers, they've never received their flowers on earth. So I encourage you, as often as you can, to give your grandmother and your mother their flowers while they're here. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of Vulnerable Moments with Miss E. You have an amazing day on purpose. God bless.